Yes. Hi everyone. A very good evening to all of you. I hope that I'm clearly audible to you guys. So I hope that all of you are doing well. A very good evening. So just let other students join. So we'll just start the session in 2 to 3 minutes. Okay. Yes. So very good evening. I hope that all of you are doing well. I hope I'm clearly audible to you, Rajesh, Vishwas, Nitesh, Kaushik, Uma, Ayush, Adarsh, then Siddhima, Keshav, right? Suraj. Okay, so I hope that all of you are doing well. Perfect, that's great. So welcome back to the another session, the second session of this mm, advanced JavaScript, right? I hope that yesterday we have started with few concepts. I hope that you are clear with that, and I hope that you are also practicing for the same, right? So in this session, we'll be talking about this content for today's session, where we'll be talking about global and function execution. I guess my screen has stopped sharing. Just give me 1 second. Yes. So in this class, we'll be talking about global and function execution, context, context. Then we'll be talking about JavaScript call stack and the concept of hoisting, right? This thing we'll be talking about in the today's class also. We'll go in detail also what is call stack, what is hoisting, for what purpose we use that. We'll also try to understand another important topic of that we call it at TDZ, that is temporal dead zone. What is the dead zone, for what purpose we use and how we use that. We'll do all the things with the example itself only, right? And then we're also going to do this debugging execution context with reference to the JavaScript. We are going to do all the things in detail, and we're also going to implement this with the different examples, right? So that is all the task we have for the today's session. So let's start jump into that and let's try to understand it, that how we are going to learn all these concepts, and what is the importance of each of this step and why actually we do that, right? Okay. So this is what we have to do that, and we will implement in the today's class. Okay. So starting with the very first thing which is available to us, that we call it as this execution phase which is available to you guys, right? So let me give you first a bit understanding part, that what we call it as and for what purpose we use that, so that you get an idea that what actually we are talking about. Now, in the global and function execution context, let me first clear you guys that what is the execution context and why we use that. So an execution context in the environment where we are writing our JavaScript code, that is the context in which we evaluate and we execute. Now you can also think of it like as a container where you are running your code, right? Okay. So execution context is the part or the block or the environment or the code in which you are specifying your JavaScript code, you are evaluating there and executing also. Consider a scenario, you have a container, you are running your code, and that portion in which you runs your code, evaluate it, execute it, we call it as execution context. This execution context is of different types. Two generally that we refer it to as global execution and function execution, similar to the things that we were doing in the yesterday's session. So, right? Global execution. With the word global means globally defined. Once it is globally defined, that means wherever your script start, you create global execution context. You write it over there, globally defined. Please don't write anything on my screen. It's a humble request, Pushkar. Okay. So global execution context means while you start your script and you define something over there, and whatever you create it over there while your script starts, we call it as global execution context. It handles the code very easily. That means we are describing outside to the function. Okay. Globally, we are declaring. And second, we call it as what we call, yes, we call it as function execution context. That means any item that we create inside a function and that is invoked when we actually call a function is a function execution context. With, with which means each function in which whatever the items we are describing, each time that function is invoked or created, this function execution context will start and it has its own variable, own scope and own value of this, right? So mainly we have two of this which are available to us. Okay. What we have two of this which are available to us. Okay. So we call it as execution context and any environment in which we run the JavaScripts and we apply that. Yes, we can say that, Pearl, right? So global execution, once your script start, you create it, and by default it is available, right? We call it as and globally available. But one, we define it as inside the function and only run when the function is invoked, created. So we call it as variable scope chain. It has its own everything, right? There are different phases of this execution context also. Okay. First, we create and then we execute. Okay. The very first thing we create, like once we create a variable, we allocate the memory to it, right? Any function, any variable that we talk about. And variables that we are going to define with the var are hoisted with the value undefined in that. Okay. So one is creation. We are creating. Creating means we have created some variable, not defined, right? Not because once we define, we assign some value. That is only creation. So we create a variable and it hosts no value in that, right? No value means undefined, means memory is still allocated. Memory is allocated to that variable, but it is not used. Okay. So that is what we call it as creation phase. And second, we have execution phase, where we actually execute the code line by line. So let's try to do this example of this global and function execution context so that you can understand what we were talking about, execution context and two of these types, global and function execution. Okay. So let me take a new file. Let me save it _5.html. So I'm going to define an HTML code where simply I'll be just giving the name of it that we are doing here is execution context. So I'll just give execution context, nothing else, right? Okay. This is like very simple we are doing. right? So that is my global and function. I'm just giving the topic name, okay? Execution code, right? In the body, we are going to write the script. I hope you remember that any script which we write in the script tag only, right? The rest of the HTML code. But in this script tag, we actually define the JavaScript. So we have two types. Global execution that starts when your script starts, right? This is global execution starts here, okay, by default, right? Global execution starts here by default. Like I define a name variable where name is equal to my name is Prabjot. I'm just defining my name here, right? So what is this is global execution context where we have defined the variable and it is globally defined. But when we are going to have a function, let me say function is, I'm just giving a name as greet. Any name you can give to the function. I hope it's fine. Let me define a variable where MSD is equal to, I'm defining here name, then I'm using here plus and saying I'm using, right? So what I'm doing here is, I've just defined one of the function and the function name is greet, which has another variable MSD in which what I'm doing, uh, I am having my name that is printing there and I'm using plus operator here. That is going to concatenate Prabjot and Singh, right? So I'm doing concatenation, just a simple thing. But the variable which I've defined inside the function, we are calling it as function execution code. Is it okay? We call it as function execution code. So my script, wherever it starts the global execution, but inside the function, whatever the variables, methods, or anything that we define, yes. So it actually called as function execution code. Function execution code. You want to print that? Yes, I can use document.write. I can use console.log, right? Whatever you want to do, I think you can do that, right? We have already been discussing this thing and it's totally fine for all of you. Is it okay? And what I need to do, this is my function definition. In order to execute that, I have to call my function, right? So this is global execution, right? And this is my function execution code, which is inside that part. So we are invoking it, invoking the function, right? Here we are calling the function means invoking the function, okay? And that execute the FEC, that create the function execution code, right? So this is the difference between global execution context and function execution context. This is what we call it. I hope that you are good with this. Once you are going to open in the browser, I hope that you will be able to see your output on there. Is it okay? Is it visible? I hope you will be able to see the execution. Prabjot Singh, that function is called and we got the output, right? So this is the difference between global execution and function execution. Make sense to all of you? All the participants present in the class? Is it okay with you guys? Is it understandable? Any doubts? You would like to have 2 minutes? You take 2 minutes. You can implement it on your side also. And let me know if you have any doubt or any concerns. Then we move to the second part. Please tell me if anyone has any doubt, any confusion, any difficulty. Global execution, function execution. Global execution, function execution. Other participants, yeah, perfect. That's really great. So now let's move to the second part that we need to talk about is the JavaScript callback and hoisting. Okay, I'll share all these documents with you guys also. Okay, I'll create a drive and in the drive I'll share all these things so that it would be easy for you to understand also. Is it okay? Make sense to everyone, right? So next comes to the second part, okay? Second thing which we have, that is the JavaScript call stack and hoisting. Now what is that and why we use that, okay? So JavaScript call stack and hoisting. First of all, let's try to understand what is call stack. Now, JavaScript is a single threaded. You know the concept of threads? We use threads to make the execution faster. A single thread is such a lightweight in order to run any program that we use, right? So it execute. So when I say JavaScript is a single threaded, which means I'm saying it execute one command at a line at a time. Okay, that means it execute one command at a time, single threaded. Now the call stack do what? It actually keep track of the function calls. Okay, like for example, currently in class, I called many students, Adarsh, Ayush, Alok, Khushi, Nitesh. Then which order I'm calling all these? It might be difficult for me to remember that. But call stack, it keeps track of all the function call in the order they need to be executed. And what it use last in first out. Okay, we call it as therefore last in first out. Uh have you seen like a book rack that you keep on putting the books one, two, three, one above other, right? So the last book that you put will be the first one that you will take it from the stack. I hope you know that a book stack, right? So the last book that you're going to put in that stack, that will be the first one you take it out. So call stack keep track of the function calls in the order they need to be executed. So what concept it use? LIFO, last in, first out. So whatever the last function that is going to be put there in that stack will be the first one that will come out of it, right? Last in, first out. We call it as last in, first out. Okay. Last in, first out. Is it okay? Now, now how does it work? How does this call stack works? When a function is called, it push onto the stack. That means whenever we are going to called means invoked, it is pushed onto the stack. And once it finishes, it is going to popped out of this stack, right? So we call it as JavaScript call stack. That means it execute the commands one at a time, and the call stack we use to keep track of the function call information. That means in which order they need to be called or executed, that it remembers. So once this function is called, it is going to push onto the stack, and once it is done, it finishing, yes, it pops out of the stack, right? This is what it use. Now, how does it work? When a function is called, it push onto the stack, and once it finishes, it popped off. This is what it means, right? Okay. Very simple, very simple definition I'm giving just to make sure that you are understanding it well, right? Now, the second portion in this we have is hoisting. Now, what we call it as hoisting, function hoisting, or anything that we talk about. Means hoisting moves the declaration to the top of the scope, which means any functions or variables declaration that we do are the hoisted. That means any declaration of the function, so means write as asynchronous but work as asynchronous but works as synchronous language. Yes, you can say that, right? Okay, stack. Last in, first out. The very first thing that we are going to put will be the first one to come out. Okay. So next we have is hoisting. Hoisting means, or what it does, it actually move your all the declaration. Obviously, na, in your program, you can declare it anywhere. Am I right? Whenever you write any program, you can declare the variable anytime, right? So hoisting does what? It actually moves the declaration to the top of the scope. Okay, scope from wherever the scope starts or wherever it is, the hoisting just move that. The functions and variable declarations are always hoisted. We say that, right? So we use two keywords, two of this let and constant that we use for the function for the variable declaration. They are hoisted too also, right? But they stay uninitialized in the TDZ cover that we are going to cover in the next part, which is temporal dead zone. Okay, temporal dead zone is the one in which my these two let and constant stays uninitialized in that. Okay, that means no values is being assigned in that. Okay, so two things we have done here. JavaScript call stack, that means every function that we are talking about, in order to keep track of those functions, we use a stack. Any function which is executing will be put onto the stack, and once it is finishes, it works out of the stack. Which order? Last in, first out. Whosoever is going to go last will be the first one to come out. That means whatsoever is going to be executed in the last will be coming out first after completing it. Okay, this is what it means. And hoisting means any declaration that we are doing anywhere, it actually moves it to the top of the scope. This is what I mean. So how we are going to execute that? Let me another take a new file. Let me save it. HTML. Okay. So again, I'm going to take this same code. Okay. What concept that we are talking about? JavaScript, call stack and hosting. Let me just give the same name so that we remember that this file is related to this and we have to write the script here. Is it okay? So now what we have to do? Let me say again a very simple thing to define so that we understand that how this call stack and hoisting actually works. So let me define one of the function similar to that, right? Okay. Let me define a function. Let's suppose say underscore hello. Okay. And I hope this function name is fine, right? It is as per our the nomenclature that we can keep. Okay. Right. So what we are having is I've defined a function say underscore hello, and what we are going to do, let me say I'm going to print on the console dot log. This is hello from the hosted function. Okay, now what it? Now you tell me if this is the function I'm defined, where I'm going to call that. If I'm defining a function here, obviously I'm going to call it after it. Am I right, everyone? After this, I'm going to call say underscore hello. If I'm not wrong, agree with you guys. I've defined the function that is going to print the data on the console, and I'm going to call it afterwards. But what I'm doing here is I am going to take this and call first of all. No, now what I'm doing, I'm calling the function first of all. I'm calling the function first of all, but defining it afterwards. So basically, the function is not there now. For example, in the class, if I'll call someone Nitesh, and maybe Nitesh is not present in the class. Now, once Nitesh is present in the class, I can call Nitesh, right? That's valid. But Nitesh is not there. But how can I call that? Then it would be of no use, right? So what my hoisting function is going to do, it is actually uses the concept in the JavaScript. Still, I'm calling the function first of all and defining it afterwards. But this actually concept of hoisting will take the function definition to the top of the scope. This is going to take the definition to the top of the scope, right? So this works due to hoisting. Still, I am calling the function first of all and defining afterwards, but hoisting makes it work that it takes my variable and function declaration to the top of the scope. This is why we will not have any kind of error in this case. Is it okay? Right? Now, let me do one more thing. Let me take another variable. Now this function is over, right? Okay. Is it okay, everyone? I'm going to take a variable a equals to 10. I'm going to take a variable a is equal to 10. Is it fine for all of you? Right? I want to print the value of this. Where I'm going to print, let's suppose again, I want to print it on console.log a. But again, I don't want to do it afterwards. I want to do it before. I want to do it. Now what I'm doing, I'm printing the value of a, but I'm defining it afterwards. I'm printing the value of a and I'm defining it afterwards. Now, how is it possible that I can print the value of a which has not been defined? So it remains undefined due to hoisting. Okay, everyone. So what is going to happen? My function that I have defined here, this function calling, right? It is going to work. It works due to hoisting. Okay. But when I'm talking about this variable remains undefined due to hoisting. Okay. That is what we are doing with the variable and with the function declaration, right? I would also like to do one more thing. I would like to define another function with the name first. Okay. This randomly I'm taking. Okay. There is like no concept in that I'm taking these names or those. Fine. And on the console.log, let me just print here first. And let me call the function second. I am want to define another function with the name second. I'll say console.log second here. Is it okay? Now I'm going to call the function first. I think this is simple, right? I'm calling the first function which will print first and then call the second function which already I've defined. Right? Is it okay? It is going to, yes, JavaScript single threaded, line by line it will execute. Okay, Ji? So let's try to understand, how is it working? Let me open this in the browser and let me show the browser it to you guys. Just one second, I'm sharing my screen with you guys. Yeah. So I hope the browser is visible. Let me inspect and let me show console. You see here, hello from the hoisted function. It works, but here we are seeing the value as undefined, right? Okay. Let me do one thing. Let me just print it afterwards. Is it okay? Let me print it afterwards and let me go to the browser again. Let me refresh. Now we are printing the value 10. I think it's very simple. Now we defined it and we are printing afterwards. No confusion in that. But what I am doing here is I'm printing first and defining after. Now you would be asking that, sir, you have to define, you have defined function afterwards, but you have called it first. It was working. Yes, the function declaration was working. Yes, definitely it will work now. Why? Because it is going to take the declaration to the top of the scope. But what happens is let and constant are hoisted too, right? But they stay uninitialized, they stay undefined, right? Due to the temporal zone, right? Because it is doing line by line execution. So once it is doing line by line execution, then so if you see here very clearly, then this has executed. First of all, it has taken the definition to the top, but it is doing line by line. So once it does, and after that, once it call it, yes, it is defined. It is actually done, but remains undefined due to hosting. And this is the very simple function. I'm just calling that inside another function. No problem in that, right? So this is my function which calling for which callings work due to hosting. But yes, for the variables, which remains undefined due to hoisting. If I'm going to use let here also, okay, let me go to the browser again. Let me refresh here. Now you see we have error here, right? Because we have defined it as a let. I am using it before the initializing, which is not possible. This is the error, right? But with what? With defining it as a var, yes. Because let, I hope we discussed let and var also in the previous class. What is the difference between that, right? With the var, yes, you see here, we are not getting any error. We are just saying that it remains undefined and rest of the code is working. Is it okay? The rest of the code is working. There is no error in that, right? That means we are successfully able to move it to the next step. So this is what it means hoisting, and we do it for function and variables, right? So with function, what it happens? Yes, it uses the declares to the top of the scope, but with the variables, yes, they stay undefined with that. But with let and constant, it remains uninitialized. If they remain uninitialized, my code will have an error. It will not move forward. Okay. But with the var that we are defining, yes, the entire rest of the code will move forward. The rest of the code will move forward, and we have not any error. It just remain undefined with this. Okay. This is what it use. We call this concept of hoisting, that it takes the declaration to the top of the scope. It takes the declaration to the top of the scope. Is it okay with everyone? Is it fine? Easy to understand? Easy to process all the information that I'm explaining with these examples? Good with all those examples? Perfect. That's great. Now, next thing, third part that we have to work upon, or we need to understand first of all, is the concept of TDZ, temporal dead zone. Now, what it is and why we have to use it. I'll explain it with two examples, good and bad, both examples, right? How we have to use it and how we don't have to use it, right? Okay. So when I say TDZ, this is the temporal dead zone. It is the period between when a let or a constant variable is hoisted and when it is initialized. So temporal dead zone, here we are not initialized in a single line. Then we'll print undefined or error. Then it will print undefined or error. No, no. If you also do that in one line, it will still remain uninitialized. Madhu, this is what I was telling now. With let and constant, it remain uninitialized. And if something is uninitialized, it will caught an error. Na? There's a difference in undefined and uninitialized. Initialized means, uninitialized means memory is not given, na, Madhu. But when I say undefined, which means memory is allocated, but it is not storing any data, na? Undefined, right? Eggs, undefined means eggs is there, but has no value because I'm printing it before that, right? But with var, what happens? That was initialized. But with let, when I say let, I'm using with which it remains uninitialized. Uninitialized means memory is not allocated yet. And if memory is not allocated and I'm trying to access any variable Madhu, then in that case, it will throw an error. It's like I'm calling Madhu, but Madhu is not present in the class, uninitialized. With var, what is? Madhu is present in the class. I'm calling Madhu, but Madhu is not responding. Madhu is still present in the class. Now that is what undefined. Madhu is initialized, but not responding, is undefined, not having any value or not able to listen. This is what the difference between uninitialized and undefined. Okay, perfect. The temporal dead zone is the period between when a let or constant variable is hoisted and when it is initialized. So that in between period, we call it as temporal dead zone, and used to assessing the variable in this period result in reference error. So if any of the variable is hoisted with the use of let or constant, and when it is initialized in between that period, if we assess any of the variable, it will give us reference error. Why it matters? Because it prevents the accidental access to the variable before declaration. So in the previous example, that was what we were doing, right? In the previous example, this is what we were doing. I have defined it as let. Now that makes A uninitialized, not undefined, uninitialized. And I'm trying to assess the value. So it is preventing the accidental access of the A variable before the declaration. This is why it is very important for us to use this. And how to use that, I'll give you one example for the same, right? So when a let or constant variable is hoisted and when it is initialized, that in between period, we call it as temporal dead zone. And in that period, if we assess any variable, it results in reference error, which helps us in understanding that we cannot assess any of the variable before the declaration. So makes let and constant are more predictable as compared to var. With var, it's not predictable. You don't know, right? Now you are not able to, you might be able to assess, but the point is, yes, it is initialized, not defined. Okay. So let's do one more example to understand the zone between the value which is defined and it is assessed. Okay. So let me define it as 7.html. Again, I'm using that. So this is my TDZ. I'm just taking it. Okay. And we are going to write the script. I'll tell you with the good example and bad example both. Okay. That how we have to use it. Okay. Now let me first give a bad example. Right. Now you see what I'm doing. I'm defining let. I'm defining a name equals to Prabjot. Is it okay with you guys? Simple variable with let. Name is Prabjot. And what I'm doing, console.log. Console.log. And what I'm doing, I'm printing the variable name. Will I be able to print that? What we will get? Undefined or uninitialized? With the let. We'll get undefined or uninitialized. Uninitialized, not undefined, Keshav. That is what we are discussing, na? With where it will be undefined, na? But with let, it will be uninitialized. Good, good, Madhu, good others, right? I hope you guys are listening. Okay, so I'll give you a bad example of this. So actually, what we get here, we are going to get here reference error. Is it okay with you guys? Because I've used let here, define name, but I'm trying to assess it before. So this zone we call it as temporal dead zone. Now you know you will be having an error, right? I know I will be having an error. You know how to handle the error? Try catch block if I'm not wrong, right? I know I'm going to have an error in this code. Agree with that point? I know I'm going to have the error in this. So I'm using try catch exception handling. Is it fine for all of you? Do you understand that? I'm trying and I'm going to catch the exception and just throw it, right? So that if any kind of error will be there, I'll be able to print that error. Okay, just trying to do that. Just trying to print you that error so that you can understand that actually we are getting the reference error, right? So console dot log and e dot, let me just print the message. Okay. I'm just using that to print the reference error. I'm just using that to print the reference error, e dot message, right? And that's where I'm ending the script. Okay. So I know I'm going to have an error. That is reference error. I'm just trying to catch it with the try block and let me just open in the browser. Okay. And let me show the browser to you guys. Yes, I hope it is visible. Let me open the inspect. Let me go to console. Now you see here. I am getting the error message that cannot access the name before initialization. Try catch is the exception handling concept, Nitesh, that we use. I know that we are going to have an error now. If I'm going to have an error, I cannot move forward now in my code, right? So we are handling that error now, right? If I'm going to do that, afterwards, if I'm just saying here, document dot write, and I'll say hello. Do you think hello will be printing? Do you think it is going to print hello? Do you think it is going to print hello? No, because we have an error in that, right? But what if I handle that error? Okay. What if I handle that error? How I'm handling the error? With the try. So the code in which I'm expecting to have an error, I'll put it in the try. And in order to handle it, yes, we use the catch. Is it okay? So try catch block comes with this, right? So whatever the exception that I'm having, E, is it okay? Whatever the exception that I'm having, I'll put it in the E and then I'll just simply print the message. What message? Console.log E dot whatever the message is there. Okay. So I know I'm going to have an error there. Now this error is going to be handled and let's see whether it is going to print the document dot uh, right or not. Hello, which is there. Is it okay? Now you see here, I'm going to go to the browser. Now you see here very clearly, we have catched the error. We are printing that. I'm trying to assess the variable with the name before initialization, which is not possible. So we have handled the error and after that my rest of the code is working. You see, we are printing the hello, right? So we are using try catch to handle that. Is it okay? We have used try catch to handle that. Is it okay? This error. That is the reference error we actually have, right? But this is a bad example actually, guys. Okay. This is the bad example. So what is the good example that we do? What we do? We print it afterwards, right? What we do? We actually print it afterwards, right? Okay, everyone. So if you know that this is going to happen, so good thing, you print it afterwards. Now, will you have any error? You will not have any error, right? I hope no. I hope so. Can you see? And the name Prabjot is printing. Hello. We can assess the data now, right? Because we are printing after the definition. We are printing after the definition. Is it okay? Right? So this is called as temporal dead zone. That is the zone between when the let or constant is defined and the variable and and the variable is initialized. Okay, so assessing the variable in the period between this let and variable is hoisted and it is initialized is resulting in a reference error. Okay, why it matters to us? Because it helps us in preventing accidental access to the variable before declaration, so we might not be able to do that, right? This is the reason we use this. Is it okay? Understandable? Any doubt? Any confusion? Is it okay for all of you? All the students present in the class? Are we good? That's perfect. Great. I hope that we are good with the concept and good with the examples also that I'm giving. So trying to keep the things very simple and easy for all of you. Okay. So now next part we have, fourth part is the debugging execution context. Now why debugging is important? Anyone in the class, do you know what is debug? Anyone in the class? What is debugging and why it is important? To see the catch at work. Okay, we see the execution. Like for example, if I'm running a code, like a loop for 10 number of times, and at some point it is giving me error or some undefined, some results not as per the expectations. So we debug the program to check the execution of each and entire part to understand the execution, right? We can simply say that. So debugging the execution context means to understand the execution context, which help you to debug the scope issues, unexpected behavior, or track variable values. We use debugger in your code So how you do that? Yes, you use the debugger in your code. How you open the developer tools, or you press F12 and you go to the sources tab, you'll be able to see that. Okay. So let's try to do with one example, and so that we can fix any kind of errors we have, so that we'll see it. Okay. So for this, we require one of the example. Mm, so let me have that uh, one example. So for this, let me define the function, right? Okay, debugging. Let me define my script here, and let me just define a function again. Same name like yesterday. I'm keeping a function as outer. Okay. I'm defining one of the variable. Let a is equal to 1, right? I've defined a function outer. In the body of the function, the very first thing I've done is I've defined a variable a, value 1. Inside this function again, I'm defining another function. Inside the outer function, I'm defining a inner function. Okay. I hope in the body of a function, we can do anything, right? And in the inner function, I'm defining another variable. Let b is equal to 2. And after this, what actually I'm going to do? I'm going to write here something that we call it as debugger. Okay. I'm going to write here defining debugger, right? Is it okay? And after that, I'm just printing the value of a and b, right? Okay. In the inner, I'm going to print the value of a and b. So I'm using here console.log a comma b. I hope that we can do that, right? So this is the outer function. This is the inner function that we have defined. This is the outer function that we have defined. So this basically is the entire outer function we have done. And once I'm done calling with my inner, defining my inner, I'm just calling the inner function, right? Okay, this is what I'm doing. You can see the code. That's very simple. We have only one function, outer function, which is there. In the outer function, I have one variable. I have one method. I'm using here debugger, which means you know what it will do? It will pause where I've written the debugger. It will pause and inspect my variables. Okay, I'm printing that, and I'm calling the inner function. Now, obviously, in order to run the outer function, we have to call the outer function outside to the body of outer function, right? Okay. So first of all, it is going to call the outer. It is going to define the variable a. Then it is going to call the inner function, which have value b equals to 2. It will debug. It will see all these variables, and then it is going to print console a and b, right? Yes, it is a reserved word that we are using here, Madhu. Okay. So when the debugger line run, when this word runs debugger, the browser will pause the execution and you can inspect call stack, scope, variable values. Okay, you will be able to see, right? So let's do that. My file name is exx_8.html. Is it okay? So we got undefined. Okay, once again, debugger. Why it is giving me error? Okay, once again, just let me check. It actually should not give me any error. Am I spelling it right? D-E-B, debugger. Okay, that's my mistake. Sorry. It's debugger. My mistake. Sorry. I'm by mistakenly written that. It's debugger. Is it okay, guys? D-E-B-U-G-G-E-R. D-E-B-U-G-G-E-R. Okay, that by mistakenly. Nobody has corrected me also. Is it okay? Can you see that? Let me go to console. So once this execution is done, can you see that, guys? It has defined the value a is equal to 1. It has defined the b is equal to 2. And once it got into this line, debugger, my debugger has paused. Can you see here? And once it is paused, you can see the variables which are defined. You can see the variables which are defined. Can you see that? So this is the power of debugger, the reserved word that we are using here. So when the debugger line runs, the browser will pause. Now browser has paused, and now you can inspect. You can inspect your call stack, you can inspect your scope, you can inspect your variables. Okay. All these sources are there, right? You can see your scope. See your closure. You can see the closure. You can see the global. You can see the local variable, right? Okay, can you see that in this script? My B is the local variable that is inside the function, right? A is also there, right? But first of all, this has been defined. Okay, so once the debugger is paused, you can also run it, right? Simply you go to the console and you see you are printing the value, right? But it is printing the value after debugger. Agree with that point, no? It is actually printing the value after the debugger. That is one of the reason it is executing line by line. Once it comes to the debugger, your browser will stop the execution. Once your browser will stop the execution, it has paused. Once it is paused, you can see the scope, you can see everything in that. So you want to run that, you simply press F12 and it will move forward, right? Okay, or you click on that, it will work. This is the power of the debugger, which helps you to do what? Which helps you to see your code, understand the execution, understand the behavior or any issue you'll be able to track. This is why we use debugger in the program. Wherever you want to use, you use it. Is it okay with this, guys? Everyone? Is it helpful? Make sense to all the learners present in the class? Yes. Is it okay? Any doubt? Any confusion? Perfect. So that's all with the today's topic. I hope that we have covered everything in today's class. So let me do one thing. Let me share all these files with you guys, right? So that you can work on that also. Is it okay? So how I'm going to share the files? Okay. Let me try it in the chat if possible for today. Next class, I will get all the files in the drive. Okay. Right. So just give me 1 second. So I feel we have done 5, 6, 7, 8 today. Okay. Can you just confirm? Have you received the files in the chat? Can you please just confirm to me? Have you received all the files in the chat? Yes, perfect. That's great. I'll get the files tomorrow in the drive and I'll share the drive link with all of you. Perfect. Are you good with the today's concept? Is it helpful? Are you happy with the learning today? Is it okay with everyone? Good with the understanding part? That's perfect. So I would like to take, uh, I want you guys to take 2 minutes, fill the feedback form, and I request you to, in case anyone has missed the class, you can also see the recording links. You can visit this link and your recordings are present of each session over there, right? You please take it once from there also. And your first session is available over there. You can see the recording. Okay. And with this session, I hope we are good with the understanding part. I request you to all please go through the concept, practice it, make the files. We'll meet on Friday. Till then, bye-bye, take care. And please don't forget to fill the feedback form. That's my humble request to all of you, right? So that's it from my side. Thank you. Signing off for today's session. Thank you. Bye-bye, take care. And we'll meet on Friday.